The verdict is in, and it isn't close. 2 in 3 employers who eliminated staff to make room for AI are already rehiring for those exact same positions. More than half reversed course within 6 months.
How many companies are coming in asking to reduce full-time employee numbers with this technology?
The technology that was sold as the last hire you'd ever need turned out to struggle with the messy, judgment-intensive, relationship-driven reality of actual work. And the companies that discovered this the hard way are now paying twice. Once to let people go,
For almost the entire economy, AI is just not good enough to be able to take over jobs.
and again to bring them back. Corporate America spent the better part of 2 years treating AI adoption as inevitable, irreversible, and frankly, overdue.
How big AI will be, how it could lead to superintelligence replacing humans.
Executives stood in front of earnings calls and described their AI transitions with the breathless confidence of someone who had just discovered electricity. The headcount reductions were sold as evolution.
Some companies are investing hundreds of billions of dollars right now in AI.
Then the invoices came due. A February 2026 Career Minds survey of 600 HR professionals tells the story those earnings calls won't. 2 in 3 employers who eliminated staff to make room for AI systems are already rehiring for those exact same positions. Not similar roles, not adjacent functions, the same jobs. More than half of those companies reversed course within 6 months.
Smarter than any Nobel Prize winner.
When AI gets super intelligent, it might just replace us.
The technology that was supposed to replace human judgment turned out to struggle with the messy, contextual, relationship-driven reality of actual business operations.
What artificial intelligence does and why people are concerned about it is they're afraid that the knowledge worker is going to become extinct.
It handled the rehearsed parts of the job beautifully. Everything else became a slow-motion crisis. 66% of HR teams now concede that AI replaced specific tasks, not people. That's not a minor clarification. That's a complete dismantling of the original pitch. Here's what ties all of these reversals together. Companies made a critical error. They mistook AI for a replacement when it was always only a tool. And every consequence that followed, the hollowed-out talent pipelines, the mountains of unmaintainable code, the hallucinating medical devices, the fabricated government reports, flows directly from that single original mistake.
AI is being rapidly adopted for software engineering. It's not really clear that it's leading to replacing software engineers with AI.
The junior developer story is where that mistake becomes a future generational issue. According to Stanford Digital Economy Lab Director Eric Brynjolfsson, entry-level software hiring for workers aged 22 to 26 has fallen roughly 20% compared to its peak in late 2022. Companies looked at the junior developer pipeline and saw a line item they could shorten. Why pay someone to learn on the job when you could hand that same task to a model that doesn't need health insurance or a mentor? It felt like a clean trade, but in reality, it was self-sabotage. The junior developer isn't just performing tasks. They're absorbing the institutional knowledge of how a code base breathes, why certain decisions were made, what the workarounds are, where the real architecture lives versus where it appears to live on the diagram. That knowledge doesn't transfer automatically. It has to be earned through trial and error, mentorship, and time. You cannot automate apprenticeship. What companies are discovering now is that they didn't just cut costs, they severed their own succession. The seniors who hold that knowledge are aging out. The juniors who would have replaced them were never hired. The AI generates code confidently and without complaint, but it cannot explain itself, defend its choices, or recognize when it's about to cause a catastrophe. That requires a human who was once junior enough to be wrong in recoverable ways and lived to learn from it. The code itself tells the same story at scale. Google Chief Executive Officer Sundar Pichai announced during the company's Q3 2024 earnings call that more than 25% of Google's new code is now AI generated. The headline lands like a milestone. The footnotes tell a different story. AI doesn't write elegant code. It clones. It pattern matches against a vast library of existing solutions and produces something that functions in the short term and compounds against you in the long term. Less like hiring a brilliant engineer and more like building a skyscraper with a patchwork of marginally viable solutions, not ones which are tailor-made for the problem that is trying to be solved. each one placed with complete confidence, none of them knowing they're part of a structure. An analysis from Cast Software estimates the world's current technical debt would require 61 billion workdays to fully resolve. Research further shows that while AI assistants can accelerate task completion by roughly 35%, the resulting product costs 4 times more to maintain over its lifespan. The speed is real, but so is the bill that arrives later. The shift is like going from craftsmen to assembly line managers. Not building something meant to last, but building quick and shipping volume. The product looks complete at demo. 6 months later, when something breaks in a way that requires actual comprehension of the system's nuances, there's no one in the room who knows where to start. Because the person who would have known was let go 18 months ago, and the AI that replaced them has no memory of why it made the choices it made. The stakes stop being abstract when the system is reading your body. The FDA has cleared more than 1,300 AI-enabled medical devices as of early 2026, with radiology imaging comprising the vast majority. Inside that number is a growing and underreported crisis. AI reconstructions creating anatomical structures that don't exist in the patient's body. Phantom geometries rendered with complete confidence and no mechanism for doubt. The American Hospital Association has raised this concern directly with the FDA, noting that the potential for hallucinations and model drift in clinical settings demonstrates an urgent need for human oversight that current frameworks don't adequately require. And unlike a junior resident who hesitates, asks a clarifying question, or notices something feels wrong, the AI commits to its error with total conviction. This is the accountability gap that no investor deck addresses. When a human professional makes a consequential mistake, there is a chain of responsibility, retraining, liability, institutional memory of what went wrong and why. When an AI makes a mistake, it simply makes that mistake again, faster, at scale, with no internal friction to slow it down. A 1979 IBM training manual, recently recirculating online like a warning from a wiser era, put it plainly: a computer must never make a management decision, because a computer can never be held accountable. We spent 4 decades treating that warning as a philosophical curiosity. We are now paying for that dismissal in ways that are difficult to quantify and impossible to fully reverse. The more insidious failure isn't any single AI error. It's what happens to human judgment in the presence of a system that never hesitates. Researchers at the Wharton Business School, whose findings were cited at the NXT Conclave 2026, have named it cognitive surrender, the gradual, almost imperceptible process by which people stop exercising independent judgment. Not dramatically, not all at once, through thousands of small moments where it's easier to accept the machine's output than to question it. Easier to follow the path of least resistance than to sit with the discomfort of uncertainty. The judgment muscle, unused, begins to atrophy. In the study's most striking finding, participants accepted incorrect AI answers at a rate of up to 79.8% in certain conditions. Not because they were careless, but because fluent, confident outputs lower the threshold for scrutiny in ways we don't consciously notice. The AI becomes the authority, and when it finally produces something catastrophically wrong, no one in the room has the intellectual infrastructure to catch it. We didn't solve the human intelligence problem, we outsourced it. The failures aren't limited to companies that overreached. They're happening at the most credentialed institutions on Earth, and the pattern is the same every time. Someone trusted the output, nobody checked. In October 2025, Deloitte, one of the most powerful consulting firms in the world, was forced to issue a partial refund to the Australian government after their $440,000 report on welfare compliance was found riddled with fabricated citations, non-existent academic studies, and an invented quote attributed to a federal court judge. The firm had used Azure OpenAI GPT 4.0 to help produce the 237-page document and failed to catch what it generated. They had sold expertise. They delivered autocomplete. Separately, the law firm representing Anthropic admitted in federal court that their legal filings contained a wholly fabricated citation generated by their own AI. When the architects of the technology cannot prevent it from contaminating their own professional work, the promise of seamless enterprise adoption collapses under the weight of its own irony. And then there's Builder AI, a company that raised over $450 million on the promise of autonomous AI-driven software development, reaching a $1.5 billion valuation backed by Microsoft. Bankruptcy filings from May 2025 revealed something extraordinary. Behind the curtain of their AI platform was a workforce of approximately 700 engineers in India, manually completing tasks the company had publicly described as being handled by intelligent systems. The AI assistant named Natasha, marketed as capable of building apps 6 times faster than traditional development, was, in practice, a routing system for human labor. They used the language of automation to attract investment, shift labor to lower-wage markets, and call it innovation. It was not innovation. It was theater with a very expensive set, and it ended in bankruptcy court. McKinsey's own data tells the story no earnings call will. Only 5.5% of companies are seeing any meaningful financial return from their AI investments. Not a struggling majority trying to find its footing, a near-universal failure to convert billions in hype into measurable value. The reckoning is arriving on schedule, and it looks nothing like what the industry planned for. What's emerging instead is a recovery market. Organizations that gutted their human infrastructure in the name of automation are quietly rebuilding it, rehiring the roles they eliminated, and discovering that the AI didn't actually absorb the work. It just made the absence of skilled people more expensive. The demand for someone who can generate functional code on command is collapsing. The demand for someone who can walk into a room where the AI-generated architecture is quietly failing, diagnose why it's failing at a structural level, and rebuild it with logic that will actually hold, that demand has never been higher. The market tried to route around human intelligence. It discovered the detour leads nowhere useful. Here's what that means on the ground. The winners in this next phase won't be the companies that automated most aggressively. They'll be the ones that kept the people who understood why the systems were built the way they were and invested in the next generation who could learn the same. The era of blind replacement is ending, not because AI stopped being capable, but because its limits became undeniable at a cost that got impossible to ignore. Every catastrophic report, every rehiring reversal, every surgeon who had to trust a system that didn't deserve it, they're all dispatches from the same front. The front where the gap between what AI was promised to do and what it actually does finally became too wide to paper over with a press release. The pendulum is swinging back, not toward a world without AI, that ship has sailed, but toward a world where human judgment is understood as the thing that makes AI usable rather than the thing it was supposed to replace. That distinction, obvious in retrospect, cost a lot of people their jobs. Some of them are being called back, many aren't. History suggests that meaningful course corrections in business don't come from cautionary tales. They come from catastrophic losses. The examples in this piece should serve as a warning. They probably won't, not until the losses get bigger, and by then, more people will have paid for that slowness with their livelihoods.